Over the last 3 years of the Biden administration, the American people have seen story after story of illegal immigrants receiving benefits and resources from the government. Just the other day, my girlfriend sent me a video of two illegals in New York City who say they've had their rent paid by the state for the last 7 months. But the benefits didn't stop at rent. They've received free meals, free health care, and even free diapers at the cost of the New York City taxpayer. They admit they don't even work, and of course we're clueless when asked where they think the money is coming from. The comment section provides the increasingly predictable knee-jerk reactions. If I could get 7 months of free rent, that would change my life. I could save almost $15,000, but instead I have to get a second job while they live. This is a growing sentiment amongst most people, and almost all conservatives, that as the U.S. government continues to print infinite amounts of money and give it away to everyone but us, we should be getting some of that money as well. We see stories of black communities quarreling with the Democrats that they helped vote in, fighting to continue giving them the resources that they've grown accustomed to getting. They don't like the illegals stealing entitlements away from them. It's an understandable take. Everything is getting more expensive, and your money has the least amount of purchasing power in your entire life, and yet the government is giving out money in the hundreds of billions. It reminds me of something Tucker Carlson said a couple years ago when the Ukraine war first started. You mean to tell me that we've always just had $100 billion laying around to give to foreign countries? Well, to be the grown-up in the room and to say what conservatives won't, no, we don't. I'm old enough to remember that this country was dead broke before COVID. Since COVID, our financial status is akin to laying in the fetal position on the shower floor with blood oozing from our rear end. When student loan forgiveness was in the news, I made the point that college grads, that is to say the rich, were on the hook for much of the forgiveness. 80% of all taxes are paid by the top 20% of earners. The bottom 40% receive more in benefits than they pay in taxes. Can you believe that? 40% of Americans are nothing more than a net drag on the system. This bottom 40% was already bankrupting us pre-COVID. As much as Democrats love to harp on about the size of defense spending, entitlements consume much more money as a percentage of our GDP. Current mandatory, that is to say entitlement spending, accounts for 16.5% of our GDP. Defense only accounts for 3%. Social Security makes up 21% of the federal budget. Health insurance makes up 24% of the federal budget. Defense only makes up 13% of the budget. According to the Cato Institute, over the next 75 years, our unfunded liabilities will come to $79.5 trillion, with Medicare and Social Security comprising 95% of that number. If we look at Social Security, it's scheduled to run out of money in 2037, when the trust fund reserves will run out. Once that happens, the current tax income will only cover 76% of benefits provided to beneficiaries. In 1940, there were 159 workers for every beneficiary. In 2030, there will only be 2.2 workers for every beneficiary, with the number dropping year by year. Way back in 2011, the Urban Institute found that for a married couple that had average incomes, they would pay about $598,000 in Social Security taxes during their lifetimes, but will only receive $556,000 back. Social Security is growing and becoming more insolvent by the day. My point is, we can't even afford to subsidize U.S. citizens now with the current benefit structure in place, much less if we were to add the hundreds of billions of newly printed money to the payroll. Now, to be sure, illegal immigrants in foreign countries shouldn't be getting that money, but neither should we. No one should. We shouldn't have even spent that money or printed that money. We should have been on a serious fiscal diet decades ago. This current monetary policy insanity from the ruling class is like vultures picking off the scraps of our economic carcass before there's nothing left. This subtle shift in narrative around the money printer going burr has no doubt created animosity for Ukraine and Israel as well as illegals, which is politically expedient for the conservatives. But now the general population thinks they are entitled to unsustainable spending. America is flat broke. What's worse is that America's memory of something like the COVID stimulus package is shaky at best. $5 trillion later, we each got $3,200. Even if the government decided to give us money, corruption prevents them from giving us all of it. Perfectly in line with the friend-enemy distinction, most of that money went to other people and institutions friendly to the regime rather than we the people. I remember during that period, I kept pointing out that we weren't getting very much money and that they were just giving money to their friends under the false pretense of helping us. But that didn't stop everyone from demanding more stimulus checks. After all, the $3,400 crumbs off the table aren't exactly life-changing when your whole world is crumbling in and you can't work. But this is the unfortunate result of living under modern monetary theory and usury. We're all so broke and desperate that we don't care how our reckless spending will affect us years down the line. So what if we can't afford to give Ukraine $200 billion? That money should be going to us. Somehow no one is able to connect the dots between the insane spending during COVID, as well as everything Biden has done, to our current economic malaise. The end result is a vicious cycle where our money becomes even more worthless due to the wanton spending, and people become even more desperate for handouts, and then they're jealous of anyone who receives anything at all, whether or not we can afford it. I mean, it is completely unsustainable, and it has to stop. Our country won't last much longer unless it does. Anyways, that's all the time I have for today. If you enjoyed this video and type of content I'm making, consider giving this video a like or maybe subscribing, and I will see you all in the next video. Peace.